Today is the 10th of August, 2016, and I'm Mike Petit-Demange. I'm a local photographer and filmmaker, and I'm here with Shirley Kerslake.
Yes.
And the reason that we've got to this point is it goes back to a theatre production that was on in, I think it would have been April this year at Dorchester. It's called Shot at Dawn, and it was by a company called Doppelganger. And it was about the First World War and about the soldiers who were executed for desertion. Now, as part of this this production, the company were looking for people's stories and about the First World War. And Shirley here came forward and said she had a story that she thought might be interesting. And I've been talking to her about that, and we're now doing a recording. So if you'd just like to tell us a bit about yourself, Shirley, and then we'll go on to talk about your grandfather.
Okay. My name is Shirley Kerslake, and I live here in Dorchester. I was born and bred here quite a few years ago. Born and bred in Dorchester. I am married to Peter, and we have 2 sons. The First World War does hold a lot of interest to us because of my grandfather, and when coming and seeing the play, it's the interest in it was quite phenomenal, really. So this is why I thought if I can say anything about the people I know and loved, I can portray to other people our interest.
Lovely. So what are your sons' names and how old are they? Just for record.
Our eldest son is Alan, and he is 38, and our youngest is Barry, and he is just 35.
Lovely. And who is it you want to tell us about today?
I want to tell you about my grandfather, who was Edward John Trim. He was born in Dorset in 1890, and he was one of 6 children, of 3 brothers, and he worked at the Dorset County Asylum, which is now was the old Harrison Hospital, which is now Charlton Down, been redeveloped. At the age of 24, he went off to join the Royal Army Medical Corps, obviously because he was a nurse at the asylum. And he went off with his 2 brothers, William George and George Robert. They went to join the Dorsetshire Division here in Dorchester.
So yes, you're saying your grandfather joined up to the
RAMC, which is the Royal Army Medical Corps.
Okay, and do you know what specific division or group that he was in?
Yes, he went into the 55th Field Ambulance Division, of which I have a little Christmas card here.
Oh, shall we have a look at that?
This is an official Christmas card from the 55th Field Ambulance.
That's lovely. If we just show the camera, and we'll probably get a better picture of that later. And inside, what does it say?
It says, "With best wishes for Christmas and a victorious peace in the new year," with his signature, and of the Stretcher Bearer Division, Christmas 1917.
1917,
yeah.
Fantastic. And you've got lots of other artefacts there. Perhaps we could have a look at a picture of Edward.
I do, yes. Here is my granddad. This is the picture of him wearing his arm crosses for the RAMC, of which I have here.
Okay, and they're the very same one that would have been in the photograph.
Yes, it's that one.
Okay.
And then there is also the armband that he wore whilst administering, and it's officially marked there.
That's amazing, isn't it? And what does the mark say?
Oh.
Can you read anything on that?
Army Medical Service.
Yes.
So, yeah. So that's
Brilliant.
that one.
That's fantastic.
Also, I do have his original dog tags here with the old piece of string. There are 2 dog tags. Each soldier wore 2, one of which, if the soldier was killed, one stayed with the body, which was this one here, and this little round one was taken back to the army for proof that he had died, so that all monies was then stopped to the family, which but obviously mine are intact.
Yeah, and that was the only reason for having the 2
that was the
dog
reason
tags.
for having 2 dog tags. That's right. Yeah.
Right.
So it's all very well worn.
Right.
Seen a lot of action, I think, that piece of string.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how old would you have been around about this time then? And what do you remember personally about your grandfather? Did he talk about his time in
He did.
in the war?
He did talk, not to me specifically because I was too young. He must have been speaking to other members of the family perhaps, or other people. But I just remember him saying about Verdun and Ypres. But unfortunately, I was too young. I didn't know. Obviously didn't know anything about the First World War, and didn't listen. But such a shame.
Yeah.
Such a shame.
Well, you wouldn't have been very old.
I wouldn't
how
have been very
would you
old.
Have been about
Oh, only 10,
10
11,
years.
12, that sort of age.
So it wouldn't have conjured up much to talk about, really.
No. And he died in 1980. But
how old would he have been then?
he was 89.
89.
He was 89 when he died. It was in his 90th year, but he was 89. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was only then, when he had died, that my father, we all missed him terribly, really terribly. But we then went back with my dad and family and my husband to the Commonwealth war graves, where we found, we just looked and saw and how it was.
So what was your father's name?
My father was William Trim. He was born in Dorchester, lived in Frampton, lived in Charminster, was married to Maureen, and yeah.
So that was obviously his father then, who you went back to. You say the Commonwealth war graves. Where are they?
They're all they're all over the world really, but we specifically went back to the Somme area.
Okay. Because
the reason we went to visit a grave, and we visited the grave of one of Grandad's brothers, William George.
Okay, because there were 3 brothers, you said,
yes.
And they all went to
war. Yes, 2 came back, but unfortunately 1 didn't.
Right.
And this was William George. And whilst on the battlefield, my grandfather found his brother, and he then took from him his artefacts to send home to his mother, who was in Frampton at the time.
He found his brother dead on the battlefield. What a shock.
It was, I can imagine, dreadful. Because now seeing the carnage and knowing more about the First World War, it was horrific. But he took these little bits and pieces and brought them home. Now, nobody in our family had been back to visit the war graves at all. So we then got together and we went back to visit the war grave. And I have a picture here of William George's headstone in Grevillers Cemetery. Grevillers Cemetery. Okay. Yes, which is just on the Albert to Bapaume Road. A very poignant area of the Somme fighting. Okay. The Western Front. So
that was the grave you went to visit with your father and other members of the family.
Yes, and here I have 2 pictures of William George.
Okay. I mean, they are incredible pictures.
Yes,
we really are lucky to still have
them. So it was very poignant going there with my father.
I can imagine.
Seeing the name Trim on a gravestone. It was very emotional, very emotional for us all. But since then, that was quite some time ago now, but since then we still keep going back.
Back.
And we went back last year. We've been back this year because it's the Battle of the Somme anniversary.
Yes.
And we will be going back next year because it will be the centenary of the death of William George.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will it?
Yes. So he died in the 2nd of May, 1917.
Right. Okay.
It's
That's amazing that you'll continue to go back and visit the graves. That's really, really incredible.
Yes. I do have a postcard here that was sent by William to his brother Ted, saying on the 15th of April 1917, thanking him for his letter and a money note, because at the time I was quite stumped at the time, so it came in quite useful, says William.
Okay.
But so obviously Grandad received this, but then on the 2nd of May 1917, William was killed or died of wounds.
Right.
He was found by his brother, by William, but I don't know exactly where.
By Edward.
By Edward.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, William was found by Edward.
So Edward had
was on the battlefield.
Only a couple of weeks ago had sent him some money.
Yes.
Which, because he was obviously short of money,
Yes.
and William was really pleased about this.
Yes.
He sent a note back
To say thank
and
you.
within 3 weeks, his brother, William had been killed.
Yes.
And Edward had
found him
on the battlefield.
That's right.
What a traumatic story.
Yeah, very traumatic. So Edward then, Grandad, took away his personal effects from him to send back home to his mother.
And what might they have been?
Well, I would have presumed anything that was in his pockets, perhaps a Bible or dog tags or anything. I really don't know, because I've never had them. I don't know. To then send home. So that would have been a very traumatic experience.
It would. Okay, so you pick them up off him as you would and send them home.
And send them home, that's right.
And you've also been in touch with the Imperial War Museum,
I have.
which has given you a bit more background to that story.
I have, because I do have a picture here, a very worn old picture of my grandfather here on the left-hand side as we look at it, wearing as a sergeant now, administering on the battlefield. And this is at the Battle of Amiens.
Okay. So as we're looking at this picture here, which I'll try and put up a better one, the soldier on the very left-hand side with the stripes and the cross on his arm
is my grandfather, Edward John Trim.
Okay.
And that was at the Battle of Amiens, at the capture of Chipperley Ridge, where we have been.
Okay.
So I was really proud of this, and likewise so was my dad, of seeing his father on the battlefield. So I took a picture of this, a copy, and I sent it to the Imperial War Museum to say, would they like it? Naively so, perhaps, because I had no idea what was in the Imperial War Museum.
Logical, wouldn't it, that they might want it?
I had a letter back from them to say that not only do they have this photograph, but they have 2 others, and would I be interested in having them? So, obviously, yes. So, both my mother, father and myself, off we go to the Imperial War Museum, and where we were presented with 2 more pictures, slightly different, but all of the same area. The same,
wow, they're fantastic.
Same battle.
Like I said, I'll try and put these pictures up a bit clearer. So if we just start with this one here, then Shirley, because you know which of the soldiers is your grandfather, don't you?
My grandfather is here, walking towards the injured here, and this was in, like I say, Chipperley Ridge, 58th London Division. So that must have been the unit.
The unit that he was supporting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's that one.
That's fantastic.
Yes, and that's from the same time, because Granddad is here. Is just here.
Okay.
So that's that.
Fantastic.
But it's the terrain which makes it just look so awful, doesn't it? The terrain here is just although it's
bleak,
dry on
isn't
that day.
it? Yes.
No mud on
No.
that day. Yeah. So whilst we were given these by the Imperial War Museum, we were able to look at any others that were just there, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing, with the amount, obviously, of photographs. And whilst talking to the curator there of the photographic section, I happened to mention of my granddad finding his brother on the battlefield and picking up his personal effects. Well, the gentleman said that my grandfather was very lucky, because had he been seen to be taking these artifacts, these personal effects, he would have been shot. And I shot because he was stealing. And I said, but it was his brother. It didn't matter. He was taking away. And I thought that was quite harsh. Very
does
harsh.
sound extremely harsh.
So consequently, when we had the play come to Dorchester, shot at dawn, it immediately came, and I thought, we've got to go and see this, and which, excellent as it was.
And it brought it to life.
And it brought it to life,
yes,
although slightly different circumstances, because that was desertion, and reasons for desertion, obviously, which we now know are, quite horrific. So that's
quite an extreme punishment. You would think with somebody who's merely taking a few things from his brother and sending them home to.
That's right. Family. But perhaps according to other people seeing that it's a deterrent, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a deterrent.
Yes,
but when it's your own, you think,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
that was
fascinating.
those 3 pictures there. Yes.
Okay.
Grandad also went on to receive 2 decorations. He received a military medal and a bar to that, which I have here. Okay. These 3 are the just standard medals which were given, but this is the military medal and bar that he was given for.
This is the bar here.
This is the bar here. Okay. Yes, along here. And this is the military medal, and this was for bravery in the field at a battle near Pol Capel. And that was in October. So what he actually did, we don't know, but I do have this little piece of paper here to say that I have read with great pleasure the report of your regimental commander and brigade commander regarding your gallantry conduct and your devotion, and that's when he was awarded the military medal as 55th Field Ambulance. So that was that one. It's very, very thin.
Yes, and it's almost not like paper. It's almost like a parchment.
It is. It is, but
it's a very unusual material.
It's the beginning of type of a plastic material that they were trying to preserve on.
Yes. Yeah. Which is worked, hasn't
it?
Yes. Because
absolutely.
It's still quite readable. It's still there. It's a little bit rucked. It's quite readable.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that only came to light a few weeks ago, actually.
Oh, did it?
As I was digging around for things or to show you. That's when I found this.
Brilliant.
So so that was that.
That's lovely.
Yes. My grandfather's other brother, George Robert, he also joined up. He started off in the Dorsetshire Regiment because there is the uniform with the hat badge very clearly displayed. And then he went over to Mesopotamia and India. He came back after the war, but he left the area and went to live in South Wales. So I don't know an awful lot about him, but there are the 2 pictures of George Robert.
Pictures.
Yes,
the
Dorsetshire.
Clear badge on his hat.
And this is India, I would imagine.
So Dorsetshire.
And then India, yes. And
this was George.
This was George, and he was over there dealing with some prisoners of war and also something to do with railways, but I just don't know what. I don't know much about him at all. I remember him as a child when he came back.
Do you?
I do, yes, and how he was and his family, and I'm still in contact with a cousin of mine who from George.
Do you know the order of ages? Was George the...
George was the... there was... Grandad was the eldest. Right. He was born in 1890.
Yeah.
William George was born in 1894. And George Robert was born in 1897.
Lovely.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was those. So that's the three brothers that went to war.
Yes.
But recently we've been over to the Somme for the commemorations this year, and we noticed in the Lochnagar crater, which is an enormous minefield, around the circumference, duckboards are being laid, and we noticed that little brass plaques are being laid for soldiers, not necessarily for soldiers who died, but for soldiers who fought. So I have organised, along with my cousin in Wales, to have 3 plaques laid for all 3 brothers, so that and they're going to go down in September. Mm-hmm. So that we are going back with my 2 brothers in May next year for our anniversary, and they don't know, and we're going to take them to Lochnagar and show them the plaques of the Trim brothers, William, Edward and George, which I think is a very poignant finale to the war effort that they gave.
And as I understand it, each of the duckboards will have a small plaque
brass plaque
on it,
that's
and
right.
There'll be the 3 all together.
They're all going to be laid together, so I've been informed. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them laid down. So and one will be there, to stay, but the other 2 came home.
Okay. Yeah. And you'll obviously take a photograph of
we
that
will.
And bring that back with you and include that in your little archive, I suppose, that you're now creating here.
That's right.
That's fascinating. Well, you've obviously invested a lot of time and energy in this, but you've got a lot out of it, I think.
I think so. It's we're very interested, and the more we go, the more we learn. So and this last year, or this last time, going over for the 100 years commemorations has been was a very sad, very emotional, but an extremely worthwhile visit. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. I did want to just ask you one point of detail. You said you told us the regiments that George was in, and we know that Edward was in the RAMC. What about his brother William? Do you know what he was in?
I don't.
He wasn't in the RAMC.
No, he wasn't in the RAMC. No, he was in the first Dorsets.
The first Dorsets.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So even though they were in different regiments, they came together on that battlefield.
Yes. Yes.
On that day.
Yes. But I don't know the story. I can't find out, because I have tried to go to the keep here in Dorchester and spoken to someone there, but they do not keep individual records for individual soldiers where they went and how they and movements.
No, but I suppose. Sorry.
No, I was going to say the only way I can find out anything perhaps would be through the archives in London.
Right.
And that's another start of investigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, because Edward was in the RAMC, he would have been tending to all the sick and wounded.
That's right.
Throughout the battlefield.
Yes, he moved great distances through the time he was there, because whilst over there in real time, you wonder how you can travel all this great distance for different places. From Verdun to Ypres to Amiens. It's a big area, but obviously there were battle buses and which we've seen replicas of. No, not replicas, real ones. And they did travel because of his, of the nature of his job there.
His job there.
Yeah. So he didn't know who he was going to pick up, and quite often you would the medical corps would go back to a battlefield after a little time to find corpses.
Would they?
Not necessarily at the time. They would go back because you couldn't pick up everybody at the same time.
No.
So we don't know. This is where I would love to go back and meet my granddad for a day.
Yes.
And find out, what happened.
What happened?
Oh, it would be amazing. But I'll never know.
You'll never know.
I'll never know. Yeah.
Well, that's really, really fascinating, Shirley. Thank you so much for recording that for us. And it could be that we do something like this in a year or two's time. You might have a bit more information. You never know,
maybe
to add to it.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
pleasurable. Thank you.